Have you ever, like, tried to buy concert tickets online,
Oh, yeah.
and you get to the checkout and it's like, "Sorry, that seat's gone,"
Ugh, the worst.
because your internet connection lagged?
Yes,
Infuriating, right?
totally.
Well, today we're diving into a technology that's aiming to solve these kinds of problems. Blockchain.
It's such a fascinating concept because that frustrating scenario you just described, it all comes down to the limitations of centralized systems.
Okay.
That ticket platform, it's a single point of control, A middleman. Eh, Blockchain. Blockchain proposes a totally different way.
It does, and we're taking a deep dive into this today with the fundamentals of blockchain by ZeroCap.
Great source.
Think of this as your crash course to blockchain. We're cutting through the hype to equip you with a solid understanding of the basics.
And I think you'll find it's not just about cryptic currencies anymore. It's really about reimagining how we establish trust and transparency, even efficiency, in a digital world. Going back to your ticket scenario, imagine a system where you could buy and sell tickets directly from each other.
Okay.
Cut out those frustrating bottlenecks and fees completely.
I'm already seeing the appeal.
Yeah.
But how does blockchain make this kind of change possible?
Well, it all starts with understanding what a blockchain actually is.
Okay.
And ZeroCap defines it as a distributed system that exists across a network of nodes within a peer-to-peer framework.
Right.
Now, I know that sounds technical,
It does sound like a mouthful.
but it's actually a very, very elegant solution.
So break that down for me.
Okay, so instead of a single entity like that ticket platform we talked about,
Yeah.
controlling everything, imagine a digital ledger of transactions.
No.
But it's not just one ledger, it's duplicated across countless computers.
Nice.
Each computer is a node in this network, and they all work together to verify and agree on transactions.
So instead of one authority, it's spread out,
Yes.
making it much harder for anyone to mess with the information.
Precisely. And that distributed nature, that's the beauty of decentralization. It's a core principle of blockchain.
So how do you get all these computers, potentially thousands of them, to agree on what transactions happen? Especially if there's no, like, central authority calling the shots.
That's where consensus algorithms come in. Think of them as the rulebook that keeps everyone on the same page.
Okay.
It ensures that everyone's copy of the ledger is identical.
And ZeroCap highlights two big ones, right? Proof of work and proof of stake. I have to admit, those have always seemed a bit intimidating.
I get that they sound a lot more complex than they are.
Okay.
Think of proof of work or POW as like a giant computational puzzle.
Oh, okay.
ZeroCap explains that in POW blockchains, like Bitcoin miners, those who contribute computing power to the network, they race to solve this puzzle.
Okay.
The first one to crack the code essentially gets to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain.
Oh, I see.
And they're rewarded for that.
So it's like a giant Sudoku competition where the winner gets a Bitcoin prize?
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But I can also see how this could be incredibly energy intensive.
Yeah.
Is that where proof of stake comes in?
You got it. Proof of stake, or POS, is a totally different approach. Instead of relying on raw computing power, validators, those who participate in the consensus process, they put up a stake.
So instead of competing with processing power, they're essentially saying, I trust this blockchain enough to put my money where my mouth is.
Exactly.
What happens if they try to cheat?
That stake, which is a certain amount of the blockchain's native cryptocurrency, is what keeps them honest. If they try to validate any dodgy transactions, they risk losing a big chunk of that stake.
For those who might not be familiar, could you quickly explain what native cryptocurrency means?
Of course, a native cryptocurrency is simply the main cryptocurrency that powers that particular blockchain. So, for example, Ether is the native cryptocurrency of the Ethereum blockchain.
That makes sense. So it's like a built-in incentive system to ensure everyone plays fair. It sounds like these different consensus mechanisms are crucial, but how do they actually work in practice with different types of blockchains? Because I've heard they're not all created equal.
You're absolutely right. Not all blockchains are created equal. ZeroCap explains that they can be public or private, permissioned or permissionless, each with different use cases and implications for, say, our concert ticket scenario.
Gotcha.
So think of it this way. A public permissionless blockchain, like Bitcoin,
Okay.
that's completely open, anyone can join, see the transactions, even participate in validating them.
Okay.
Much like how anyone can theoretically buy or sell concert tickets on a large platform.
So it's completely decentralized and transparent.
Oh.
Anyone can see what's going on. That makes sense for something like Bitcoin.
Uh-huh.
But what about for situations where you might need more control over who has access?
Right, that's where private blockchains come in.
Okay.
So think of a company using a blockchain to manage sensitive data. They
Yeah.
might want to restrict access to only authorized employees.
So it's like a company's internal system,
Right.
but using blockchain technology for enhanced security and transparency within the
Exact.
organization.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about those permission blockchains?
Yeah, so permission blockchains, they add an extra layer of control.
Okay.
Zero Cap actually uses the example of supply chain management here,
Okay.
where, say, several companies need to share data.
Oh.
They could use a public permission blockchain, where anyone can see the transaction history, like the movement of goods, but only authorized participants can add new blocks of data.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So for our concert ticket problem, a permission blockchain could allow for like secure, trackable ticket sales,
Right.
but it would prevent things like scalping or fraudulent tickets.
Exactly.
So we'd have more trust in the system knowing it's not controlled by a single entity.
Exactly.
This all sounds incredibly promising, but
Yeah.
are there any downsides to blockchain? It can't be a perfect solution, right?
You bring up a really good point, and ZeroCap knows this too. They highlight what they call the blockchain trilemma,
Okay.
which basically states that achieving scalability, security, and decentralization simultaneously
Right.
in blockchain, it's challenging.
Okay.
Think of it as a balancing act.
Like trying to juggle three things at once, and as soon as you focus on one, the others start to wobble.
A perfect analogy.
Okay.
So let's take scalability.
Okay.
As the blockchain grows, right, more transactions occur,
Yep.
and this could lead to congestion and slower processing.
Makes sense.
So imagine thousands of people trying to buy concert tickets all at the same time.
Right.
The system could get overloaded.
Yeah.
So finding ways to handle massive transaction volumes without compromising speed or security, that's crucial.
And then there's the issue of balancing this scalability with security and decentralization.
Exactly.
That does sound tricky.
Yeah.
So how do developers even begin to address these limitations? Like, how do they make blockchain more efficient?
That's where the exciting world of layered architecture comes in.
Okay.
So imagine a bustling city, okay? On a layer 1 blockchain, like Ethereum, as it grows, the roads or the base network get congested.
Okay.
ZeroCap explains how layer 2 solutions act like superhighways
Okay.
or even high-speed trains built on top of the existing infrastructure
Right.
that alleviate that congestion.
So they essentially turbocharge the scalability of the base layer without compromising security or decentralization.
Exactly.
What about this layer 0 I keep hearing about?
Yeah.
Is that like building flying cars to just bypass the traffic altogether?
You could say that.
Okay.
Think of layer 0 as the bedrock upon which all other layers are built.
Okay.
It provides the tools and infrastructure for developers to create entirely new interconnected blockchains.
Wow.
So this allows for specialization and greater interoperability between different blockchains.
Interoperability. Could you explain that a bit further?
Of course, interoperability means that different blockchains, even ones built for specific purposes, can seamlessly communicate and share information.
Okay.
Imagine a network of interconnected cities, each specializing in different things,
Well,
but all working together for greater efficiency.
wow. We've gone from digital ledgers to interconnected cities.
I know, it's exciting stuff.
This layered approach sounds like a game changer.
It really does.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Sure.
let's pause and revisit the why behind all of this.
Yeah.
Why should our listeners even care about blockchain? Especially if they're not interested in cryptocurrency. So we're back, and I gotta say, all this talk about interconnected blockchain cities, it's really got me thinking about the future.
It's a powerful analogy, right? But you're right. Let's bring it back to why this matters to, the average person.
Yeah.
The beauty of blockchain is that it has the potential to transform, like, almost every industry imaginable.
Okay.
Remember that concert ticket frustration we talked about?
How could I forget? It's like burned into my brain.
Exactly. So imagine a world where you could buy and sell tickets directly from each other
Okay.
on a secure, transparent blockchain platform.
Okay.
No more middlemen, no more hidden fees,
Wow.
and definitely no more worrying about whether your internet connection is fast enough to beat out the bots.
That sounds like a dream, honestly, for like every concert goer.
Right.
But it's got to be more than just tickets, right? It seems like this technology could really change things in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Think about supply chains. With blockchain, you could actually track a product's journey from like factory to doorstep.
Wow.
ensuring authenticity, ethical sourcing, you name it.
Okay.
Or even think about voting systems,
Uh,
where blockchain could create these tamper-proof records, increasing trust and transparency in elections.
well,
And we're even seeing use cases pop up in real estate where
yeah.
blockchain can streamline property transactions and make fractional ownership more accessible.
It's really amazing to think that these concepts, which, seem so futuristic even a little while ago,
Yeah.
they're actually becoming a reality.
I know.
But for our listeners who are hearing all of this and thinking, okay, this all sounds great in theory, right?
Yeah.
But what's actually holding it back? Like, what are the realistic hurdles? What's holding blockchain back from just, like, widespread adoption?
It's a great question. And it's important to think about that too.
Yeah.
And honestly, while blockchain technology holds a ton of promise,
Right.
it's definitely not without its challenges.
Okay.
Scalability, for example, remains a really big one.
Right.
As more people and businesses start using blockchain, networks really need to be able to handle those increasingly high transaction volumes without sacrificing speed or security.
Yeah, like, it's one thing to say, oh, we have this great new technology, but it's another thing to actually be able to, like, use it. Right.
Exactly. And that's not even mentioning the regulatory landscape.
Right, because that's still totally evolving, too.
Completely. Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to best regulate this emerging technology, right?
Right.
And finding that balance between fostering innovation while still protecting consumers,
Right. It's super important.
it's absolutely crucial for blockchain to be successful long term.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here into the fundamentals of blockchain, what's, like, the one thing you want our listeners to take away from our conversation today?
I think the most important thing to remember about blockchain is that it's more than just a buzzword.
Okay.
It's not just a fad.
Yeah.
It really does represent this like fundamental shift in how we think about trust and transparency, even just the flow of information in general.
It's about empowering individuals, right? Reimagining these systems that we've, always thought of as sort of set in stone,
Yes.
and really trying to build a more efficient, equitable future.
Precisely. And whether you're someone who's been following blockchain for a while or you're just now starting to explore it, understanding the fundamentals, the why behind the what,
Right.
that's what's important.
It is. It is. And a big thank you to ZeroCap for really providing that comprehensive overview in the fundamentals of blockchain. It's been a really, honestly enlightening journey for me and hopefully for our listeners as well.
I second that.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive will inspire some of our listeners to become the blockchain pioneers of tomorrow.
There you go.
From, like, revolutionizing industries to maybe, just maybe, fixing those pesky concert ticket problems, the potential of blockchain really is huge. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world of technology.